Hi, and welcome to the Bruce Channel. I'm Bruce, and wow, so much has happened over the last 2 weeks, and I was away last week, movieing. Is that a verb? It's at least a gerund. Anyway, so I think about these last couple of weeks, and so very much has gone on. Where to begin? I think maybe we begin with the flooding in West Virginia and all of my years. I've seen a lot of tragic pictures and films, but I'm not sure I've seen anything as heartrending as this. Likely you saw it too. The house on fire, floating downstream after the floodwaters had ripped it off its foundation. Something like 26 dead, 44 out of West Virginia's 48 counties, federal disaster zones. This is, again, one of those 1 in 1,000 year events. The rainfall, that's what happens when you get 1/4 of your annual rain in hours. Nothing can prepare for that. And that's what's so troubling. You know, we saw that sort of flooding in part of Texas earlier this year. That was also once every 100 or 1,000 years. And remember, just last fall, South Carolina, again, a 1 in 1,000 year rainfall. So, you know, it's really troubling as we see these once in a 1,000 year rainfalls now a couple of times a year. Consequential flooding, it's mind-boggling. So is it global warming? Climate change? I've said before, I'm not a climatologist, I'm not even a scientist, but the overwhelming majority of climatologists, and it's virtually unanimous among those who aren't paid by the fossil fuel industry, they say it's climate change, man-made. Well, I know this. Everyday weather is local, and it can vary widely. Last year, 2015, it was again the hottest year on record. Of course, the record that it had broken was only a year old, 2014. But even though last year was the warmest on record, there were some places that experienced some new record low temperatures. That's weather. Short range doesn't mean anything, but long term, worldwide, the temperatures keep rising. You probably know this. If I've got a quarter and I flip it, it's got a 50-50 chance of coming up tails. If it is tails and I flip it again, it's still 50-50. And if I flip it 50 times and it comes up 50 tails in a row, the odds are the next flip still 50-50. But if I flipped it 50 times and got results that were so out of the predictive margins, I might suggest that the coin had been tampered with. I'd suggest it be experienced. You know, maybe like dice that have been shaved or roulette wheels that have been magnetized. So maybe the coin has been unevenly weighted or something. You know, these way out of the margin weather events, they happen way too often, far more often than statistically predictive. And you know, if that happens time and time again, maybe there is something having an effect on the outcomes. You know, like a butcher putting his thumb on the scale. Since it keeps happening, ought we not at least consider it? Okay, also big news, in a way much bigger than the story of floods, but in another way, not big yet, not until we know where it ends up. But a week and a half ago, of course, the United Kingdom voted to leave the European Union. Wow. So it really officially means nothing yet. It was a non-binding resolution. Parliament almost certainly obligated to go along, but not legally mandated to do so. Many who voted to leave thought they were making a protest statement, didn't really expect it. Some of them Googled, what is the European Union? That was the most Googled thing the day after the referendum was held. It's not impossible they'll hold another referendum, but the EU itself says, fine, you want out, don't look the door. Get you in the ass on the way. Prime Minister David Cameron has resigned effective October. But so now behind the scenes, it's almost fictional, or it resembles a fictional drama. Now they're stabbing each other in the back. It's like House of Cards for real life. And what brought this about anyway? Fear. It's a little, well, it isn't, but it's almost a bit funny. We humans are capable of so much. We can see with incredible detail deep into the universe's past, because of the Hubble Space Telescope. And just building that was an incredible feat. Getting it into space was another incredible feat beyond imagination. Once we got it up there, we discovered there was a giant flaw. We went up there and fixed it. We walked on the moon. We can, through FaceTime and Skype, talk with real-time pictures, someone on the other side of the globe, and it's virtually for free. We can create great art and music that challenges, that invokes pathos and empathy and love, and yet we're scared of our own damn shadows. And because of that, some of us have discovered that fear sells and use it to profit. Fear has always made for an easy sale. I've mentioned it before, financial advisors who tell us that the economy is about to tank. And they show us numbers, and then they tell us that everything we've ever worked for is at risk unless we do the right thing with our investments. What's the right thing? Only they know the right thing. It's true, financial markets do go up and down. Years ago, a study showed that, at least regarding the stock market, monkeys picked as successfully as stockbrokers. That's only one kind of fear-mongering. There's the government boogeyman, too. As a young man, my dad was influenced by the rantings of Father Coughlin, a radio personality who preached a globalist conspiracy that was intent on taking down our government, our way of life. And the fall of our government was imminent. At the time, the conspiracy was usually said to be masterminded by the Jews of Europe. Father Coughlin had plenty of followers. Henry Ford believed it. They were both headquartered in Detroit. And Henry Ford published a vitriolic anti-Semitic newsletter. So a generation later, the message was the same. Father Coughlin was gone. For that matter, so was Henry Ford. But the imminent demise of the United States was still at hand. All that would prevent it this time was there was a small band of patriots. They were fortunate to be led by the brilliant Robert Welch. I say brilliant because he, as few others have ever been discerning enough to discover, he had indeed discovered the global conspiracy that was about to bring down the United States government. Who were the globalists? Well, they weren't called the Jews. Instead, it was the global bankers. The Rothschilds, the Rockefellers. The UN was about to become a one-world government. And Richard Nixon was going to become King Richard the First. That is what the John Birch Society preached. It was going to happen imminently. Now, not long ago, I mean just a couple of years, a financial advisor named Porter Stansbury sent me an email warning that the fix was in. Barack Obama, just after being re-elected, he would ram through an amendment which would allow, and then he'd run for and win a third term. Stansbury hasn't said that for a while, but he hasn't. He is still preaching of a financial bloodbath that is about to happen. None of the aforementioned events and overthrows have happened, but there are still those who predict it will any day, and they sell solutions, There really are dangers in the world, it's true. There are threats, whether bad investments or terrorist bombs. Just this week, the airport in Istanbul was bombed. But throughout history, real threats have been inflated, and then those inflating sell answers. And they also proclaim loudly, see, I predicted that and I was right. They always ignore all the predictions that were wrong. So, back to the UK wanting to leave the EU. Why? Fear. We see how the voting went. Both Northern Ireland and Scotland wanted to stay in the EU. London voted to stay, but most of the English countryside voted to leave. So now what? Scotland and Northern Ireland may leave the United Kingdom and try and stay in the EU. John Oliver said it very well. To just say United Kingdom now sounds like sarcasm. Demographically, it was the older voters who voted to leave. They want to return to a time of nostalgia. There were so many different people in the country, people who weren't Anglo-Saxon from somewhere else. And if you think about it, it sounds just like the voters who support Donald Trump. Despite his nastiness and his crudity and his obvious lack of understanding international diplomacy in any depth, his slogan, "Make America Great Again," has resonance with white baby boomers. They grew up believing that the world they lived in, a very nice, white, middle class, leave it to beaver world, they believed that was the entire world. It was all they saw, and it was great. If you were white and middle class, it was great. Our economy was booming because, the rest of the world had the crap bombed out of it. We were the only ones with factories intact. So we built things and we sold to a global market. It was great. Maybe it wasn't quite as great if you weren't white. It was a lot worse if you were black. In the South, you couldn't vote. And if you were lynched, if lynch mobs came out and strung you up for much of the 20th century, they wouldn't be prosecuted. Native Americans didn't have it much better. But yeah, for white aging baby boomers today, that nostalgia has enormous appeal. I repeat, as a species, we accomplish great things. But we so fear change, and you'd think we could get over that because, as has been said, the only constant is change. Something very rare happened, not this past week, but the week before that, just after our last get-together. The summer solstice and the full moon, strawberry moon, happened on the same day. How rare is that? The last time was 30 years ago, 1986. The next time, 2062. I can hardly wait. The last time it fell on a winter solstice was 2010, but the next one of those will be 2094. I can't wait for that one either. I had hoped to go outside and take a picture of the moon at exactly 6:34 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time on Monday, June 20th. That was the moment the solstice actually occurred, the moment when the sun's north movement stopped. But here, the moon wouldn't rise for over another 2 hours, so I couldn't get the picture. But at that moment, when it would go no further north, at places like Denmark and Italy, it was already 21st of June. So in the wee hours of the morning, here, somebody else took a picture, beautiful picture, of what is called the strawberry moon. Just to round out the seasons, the next full moon on the autumnal equinox will be in 2029, and the next one for the vernal equinox just 3 years, in 2019. Actually, that's now just a little less than 3 full years. Something else that came up during that discussion, in general, we all know that if I said this, would you say this true? That the days get longer in summer and shorter in the winter, right? Yeah, of course. Except, and we all know this, sometimes we just don't quite think things through. That it was pointed out by astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson. The longest day of the year is when? Yeah, the summer solstice. So, during summer itself, the days are actually getting shorter. All right, one last peripheral mention, and I'm reminded of it because it was the strawberry moon, and I made an interesting discovery. All right, so the moon is named strawberry moon because in the northern hemisphere, that's when strawberry season reaches its peak. It's on sale. I mentioned last show my dad's love of strawberries and ate one in his honor, and they are plentiful. They're half price or buy one, get one free. And it's very tempting to buy a bunch of them, but a couple things I've learned. The trouble with fresh strawberries is they, of course, go bad very quickly. They develop mold and they rot, they get soft. You can freeze them, but I can buy frozen strawberries. So I solved some of that. I have canisters in which I can create a vacuum. And that keeps the mold away and they don't rot. Another thing I've learned, here's a pound of strawberries, and I get them home and I discover what I should do is look underneath, because sometimes many of them are not ripe, or a good deal of an individual strawberry. Half the strawberry isn't ripe. So I wasn't sure. You know this too. You can get a tomato that isn't fully ripe, and you can leave it and it will ripen. It will be hastened if you put it in a small paper bag. So I wondered if I could keep them from rotting. Would they ripen, the strawberries, that is? So I put them in the canister and waited, and the word is no, they will not ripen. The white part of the strawberry was as white as ever, and it was like 2.5 weeks later. No color change at all. But here's what I found interesting. I did eat the red part of the 2.5 called Strawberry. And it was okay. It wasn't rotten. But it surely had fermented. Yeah. Strawberry wine, strawberry moon, you can just call me Bruce Michael Boone. Hey, let me tell you about my book, Shrink. Or wait, I can let others do it. All right, so welcome back. As always, a reminder that you can write to us at the Bruce Channel at yahoo.com. You can watch all of our previous episodes at either tinyurl.com/Bruce Channel or at our Facebook page. So, last fall, I spoke of the many disappointments those of us who root for the various Cleveland sports teams have known. In baseball, the Indians lost the World Series in 1954, but I only know that because I read of it. I do remember firsthand losing the 95 and 97 World Series. By the way, as I record this, the Indians have won 14 in a row, a franchise record. In football, the Browns were the dominant professional football team in the 40s and 50s and one of the powers through the 60s. They won the NFL championship in '64, and they have had a number of great seasons in the decades since. But since, something always happened to make it disappointing. The Cavaliers, the basketball team, well, they first went to the finals in 2007. They lost, I think, 4 straight. So then last year, they went to the finals against the Golden State Warriors. During the run to the finals, they were beating everybody, handily. And then just before they got to the finals, they lost Kevin Love. Dirty play took him out, and Kyrie Irving hurt his knee and only was half speed when he did play. They missed some games, so they lost. This year, Golden State won more games than any NBA team in history. They only lost 9 all year. So in the finals, Cleveland was down 3-1. They got back to the finals, and 2 weeks ago I reminded you that Game 7 was that night. They won it. They became the first team in history to come back from being down 3-1 in the finals. And, doing that proved that last year wasn't a fluke, and without those key injuries, they might have won it, maybe twice in a row now. So there was a big, big party in Cleveland. Estimated 1.3 million people downtown watching the parade. As one who's originally from Cleveland, I understand it. 52 years since a championship of any sort. Wow. Some 25 or 6 years ago, which means the championship drought was then only half as long as it had been destined to grow. I remember watching the movie Major League. If you've never seen it, the Cleveland Indians in real life at the time were in the middle of being pretty awful. And they were in the movie pretty awful, and the movie played off that. The plot develops, these losers gradually start to win in spite of themselves. The crowds go from a few hundred to a few thousand. Full stadiums, and everybody's cheering and crying, and I was watching that movie, and I was crying. Because it felt so real, and I knew the disappointment, and I knew the joy that would be there if they ever did win. My wife, now my ex-wife, was watching it with me, but she looked at me crying, and she was dumbstruck. She just didn't get it, but then she didn't grow up in Cleveland. So I love that movie, and to this day, I don't know if it's a good movie or not. I mean, I love it. But do I love it because it was any good or because I grew up in Cleveland? I don't know. If I weren't from Cleveland, would I even have watched it all the way through? Don't know. So anyway, yeah. 1.3 million to watch the parade downtown? You bet. All right, finally, some anniversaries. Friday was Canada Day. The document forming the Dominion of Canada was signed in 1867, 140 9 years ago. Saturday marked an anniversary. Gone with the Wind's Melanie and Robin Hood's Maid Marian, Gloria? No, Olivia de Havilland turned 100. Many happy returns, Mr. Havilland. Sunday, July 3rd, my folks' wedding anniversary. Not that they're here to celebrate it, but as a kid, I always thought it was pretty cool. They'd celebrate their anniversary, and then the whole country would get together and give them a party with hot dogs and ice cream and fireworks and everything. Yeah, obviously I figured it out later. So anyway, Monday this week is when in the course of human events, it turns 240 years old. That's something. You know, at his Gettysburg Address, Lincoln began by alluding to the Founding Fathers bringing forth on this continent a nation dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal, meaning that as a proposition, it was an experiment. No one knew if it would work. Now, both the Declaration and the Constitution were works of genius, which ought not surprise. They were among the smartest men of their day. They were still subject to the limitations of not knowing certain things. They did the best they could. They made some obvious mistakes. Women couldn't vote. Blacks couldn't vote. In fact, blacks weren't even fully human. In censuses, a black person counted as 3/5 of a person. Of course, the Founding Fathers didn't know of DNA, so they didn't know really how alike we really are. They never heard of a telegraph, never mind telephone, radio, television, satellite, internet. There weren't railroads. There were guns. Single fire, single ball, take a minute to load guns. No revolvers, no automatics, no semi-automatic weapons. They got a lot of stuff wrong. But they got a lot of things right. They knew that things would change. They knew they didn't have it perfectly done. The Constitution was created as a fluid, living document, and I know this because in it they explained how to change it, how to make amendments. So they knew it would change with time, with modernity. And they valued learning. They valued wisdom. They valued experience. They valued education. They knew that knowing stuff would advance the human journey. They couldn't dream of flying machines, but they did dream that there were machines they couldn't dream of. And those things and the other things of which they had no idea of what they were, but they nevertheless knew that someday there would be these things. They knew those things, those flying machines and smartphones and walking on the moon would only come about if we encouraged and wished our young people to grow up and be wise and smart. And we wouldn't belittle as pinheads those who might seek to think about things in ways more complex than power through strength and drill they be drilled, and what does he know, he's only in the compass. Happy Independence Day, happy 4th of July. May it and the week that follows it be the best you've ever had.